Yep.
Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you join our virtual lunch and learn. Today's topic is how precasters use automated scheduling and data tracking. A couple of reminders. For those of you that signed up through our web form, we will send you an email with a link to this recording. For those of you that signed up through LinkedIn, we'll post on our LinkedIn page uh, the means for being able to get a recording for you as well. So today what we'll cover after I introduce you to our panelists, we'll start with data tracking, which is really the foundation of everything going forward in terms of the automated scheduling. We'll talk about the automated scheduling and show you how that works, and then we'll provide you with a little run through of what it would be like to use the system in your plant. Following that, we'll have questions and answers. Our objective is to wrap up the presentation by 1 o'clock and leave 15 minutes for questions and answers. There is an ability, you have an ability to ask questions through the webinar. You can't ask them by voice, but you can write them in and we'll be glad to field them and address them. My name is Jeff Pollock. I am CEO of Identia. I've been CEO for about 6 years. I started when we were offering a simple quality control inspection process and have overseen the development of the company into offering a complete data capture, data tracking process. I've really come to enjoy working with the precast community, and I see lots of areas for productivity improvement that we can all work together on accomplishing. With that said, let me introduce you to our panel. We have Wes Dees, Glenn Hutchinson, and Greg Hammond. Wes, we'll start with you. Please give yourself an introduction, and then we'll move to Glenn.
Thanks, Jeff. Happy to be here today. Really looking forward to this session with everyone. I am Wes Dees. I'm principal of Buildtech Sourcing. Buildtech really is a company that services only the precast concrete industry, including PCI producers as well as National Precast Concrete Association producers. And we really focus on consulting, sourcing of materials and products and equipment for companies, and trying to work with management on an as-needed basis.
And you served on the NPCA board for a period of time too, as well, didn't you, Wes?
I did, yeah, really great experience to do that for 3 years, and kind of a way to stay involved and to give back to the industry.
Excellent. Glenn, tell us about yourself.
Yes. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, my name's Glenn Hutchinson. I'm the principal of International Precast Services. I do see a lot of familiar faces here, or names, I should say, rather, on coming from LinkedIn. Really appreciate you taking the time out and sitting with us today. We provide sales support services, as well as sales coaching, business development services, marketing services, and website development specifically to the precast industry.
And you've spent your career in up until this time in offering technology solutions to the precast and construction industry, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Spent something like 13 odd years, 14 years in BIM software. So Tekla, Allplan, on servicing the precast industry all over the world, really, not even just here in the US.
Nice, nice. Greg, you're up.
Thanks, Jeff. My name's Greg Hammond. I'm president of True Alliance Consulting. Prior to this, I'm a former precast plant owner for 18 years. Now I take my experiential knowledge, my skills to help precast manufacturing business owners and CEOs really optimize their talent by building high-performing teams that execute strategy and create a culture of continuous growth with really strong measurable results. So if you're struggling with your management teams and you're looking to attract and retain skilled workers, really need a strong people strategy, and that's where I spend a lot of my time working with precast companies now. Previous to that, I also did serve on the Architectural Precast Association Board of Directors for 10 years.
Yeah, and you were really a technology leader. You were one of the earlier people to buy our system, the Identia system, when you were at your precast company.
Yeah, I was a very early adapter of Identia, and we'll speak more about that and how I utilized it.
Good, good. Well, thank you all. I'm very happy to have all three of you here to help add your insights to what we'll be talking about today. So let's start at the very beginning. The fundamental question is, why should you bother having data tracking in your precast plan? And the simple answer is that there is so much data being produced by precast operations that if you're not using technology to take advantage of the ability to harvest that data and turn that into useful information that can provide you with insights, in effect, you're leaving money and productivity opportunity on the table. Here, tell you what we're talking about here. So it's no secret to precasters the amount of data that's produced on a daily basis. QC checks, repair inspections, placement of product. It's really quite astounding how much data is out there. Now, there are solutions out there that can help capture that data and turn it into useful information. Recently, in the last 10 years or so, the mobile technologies have enabled much better data collection, and in the future is going to be those plus other sources like sensors and the like that will be used by producers of all kinds to collect the data and turn it into that useful information. And then finally, when that's done, you can use applications that provide you with insight. Now, we call the difference between the two is data tracking is a collection and conversion of the data into useful information. Data management is turning that into insight. There are a lot of solutions out there in the data management space. You got your ERP solutions, your BIM solutions, scheduling solutions, and the like. What hasn't really been addressed as well, in our opinion, is the data tracking side. And that's the opportunity that we see Identicia can provide to the industry. Now, the way we've approached the market is people can use Identicia as a standalone solution for collecting and processing data from the plant to provide meaningful insights. But in fact, the real value, I think, going forward is going to be in connecting the Identicia system with ERP systems, BIM systems, scheduling systems, and the like. And we can do that with any modern system out there that is available to integration. Now, I'd like Glenn, if you wouldn't mind, you've had experience in the technology side to speak to the importance of being able to share data and break down silos.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. Yeah, really, the source of any project coming in, whether it's a product or a project, bringing in all that information starts with the pieces, actually virtually building your project or products before going out to production to make sure that number one, everything is accurate. During this process, you're creating all these this inventory of lists, this bill of materials, transferring that bill of materials to the next step in the process. That digital handshake, that digital handover could go to an ERP system, could go to Identicia. And it's that data that starts off from the very beginning of the project cycle all the way through to the very end. So this is basically reducing a lot of that human error, that manual input of data that somebody's having to type in somewhere. It's also connecting all of these departments together and having that single source of information into where to look for that data and how to management.
Yes, thank you. And that's actually very consistent with our view, is that there, as you mentioned, there are a lot of systems that want to talk to each other. Pretty much everyone does and will want to. We see an opportunity to provide that sort of common platform that can speak to all systems so that it's much easier for you to be able to transfer information from your BIM system to your ERP system, perhaps through Identicia. The more we can make that easy for people, the better it's going to be for everybody.
Absolutely.
So when we started Identicia, as any good technology provider will, we looked for problems that needed to be solved. And it wasn't hard to find that in the precast industry. We saw a lot of people still do The biggest things that we hear are locating into inventory in the yard takes way too long. We need a better way to track our operations, and we're spending too much time making reports. And lately what we've seen a lot of people say is, and we're looking for ways to measure our performance so that we can develop ways to be more productive. And that's really the insight piece that we're talking about. Now, that's fine, but any solution also needs to provide an ability to generally improve performance. And data tracking does that in three primary ways. Number one is it reduces waste. If you talk to any practitioner of lean manufacturing, they will tell you that any activity that is not directly related to providing customer value is considered waste. So a lot of things that we assume are just sort of the natural part of our operations, like preparing reports and filing papers and so forth. That's actually, in the purest of sense, that's waste. So the ability to be able to save time, reduce errors, duplication, and so forth are all uh, 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 functions that can help operations reduce the waste and therefore become more productive for their own self as well as for their customers. Secondly, data tracking by its nature produces better outcomes because it's structured. So when you're inputting information on a tablet that has been pre-configured to offer a standardized approach, it's going to produce better outcomes. That plus the ability to scan instead of manually input data also improves the outcomes. We've found in our experience that there's an interest in this because, number one, it makes training easier, especially in an environment where you have lower skilled employees and a lot of high employee turnover. And thirdly, data tracking provides instant feedback. It offers one place where you can find all of your plant data. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about having data available to the plant in a little bit. By having this system and with the dashboard and reports, it provides the insight that we were talking about before that is useful to plant owners and managers. So before we proceed, I'd like to ask Wes, you've spent a lot of time consulting in precast plants operationally, and I think you've seen your share, you know probably in your sleep how the operations work. You probably have seen a lot of these systems that have been traditional, not systems, but practices that have been applied traditionally in precast operations that with the availability of technology actually become obsolete and now sources of waste that can be eliminated. Do you have any thoughts about that you can draw on from your experience?
Thanks, Jeff. In the numerous plants that I've been in, for the most part, today it's very consistent that owners and operators use technology day to day. In fact, they really couldn't run their business effectively without it. So, for example, not many producers are doing their accounting on paper, nor their payroll, nor their purchasing, or their HR. For that matter, they're definitely not doing it for batching, right? Which it begs the question is, so why aren't they using technology for production data? Everything that I just previously mentioned all feeds that operation. And in the one area where they can have the most impact on the bottom line with proper collection and use of data is in production. So I think as we move forward, we're going to see a continued adoption of technology in production and the collection of that data and then turning that data into useful information.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, one of the things that we've found, somewhat to my surprise, but as I've thought about it, maybe not so much, is that people in the plant oftentimes don't even have any access to the ERP system that the company's using. And so to the point that you're making, by working off of paper-based systems and so forth, they're kind of flying blind. And as we develop this, we kind of stumbled into it, to be honest, but we recognize that providing the managers and the operators in the plant with the ability to collect the data and then obviously move to those insights is an area that really hasn't been served, and that's part of the reason why we're focusing on the data collection and the information side, because that's really what's going on in the plant. So thanks, Wes.
Yeah.
Now, as I mentioned before, data tracking is the foundation for being able to more efficiently and effectively use those data management systems. As Wes was talking about, by being able to, and Glenn mentioned this, by being able to scan and enter information digitally, you're going to have the ability to manage that data and information much more effectively by connecting to these other systems. So a perfect example of that is automated scheduling. With the data tracking, the daily production is tracked according to the schedule that's been set up by the work order scheduling system. After that data is collected, it's pulled into the scheduling system to assess what was scheduled to happen versus what did happen. The schedule is then recalibrated and a new production schedule is set for the next day and it's emailed. So it's a very dynamic process. Now, I'd love to say that we could take credit for this, but the fact is that we ended up finding out about this through Greg. Because Greg, when he was managing his precast company, used Identicia as a customer and found out that this would be an opportunity to help make his operations more productive. So he developed one of his own. Greg, you want to talk about that?
Sure, Jeff, I'd love to. We were an early adopter of Identicia, as you mentioned, and it was in 2012 when we were looking to find solutions for scheduling that I started looking back towards Identicia as a possible option to solve that solution. We already had all the data that was captured in our plant, all our products and our pieces that were being produced every day. So how could we better manage that? We reached out to a developer and developed the scheduling software that you just described. Being a guy who likes to run with tech and firmly believes in using technology to maximize my business at the time, it only made sense to do this. The software itself was able to kind of elevate our business in the fact that we were able to shift resources around. So we didn't have a full-time person scheduling every day. We took the human error out of the scheduling process. This allowed for accuracy in our capacity and our planning. We were able to see the bumps and valleys that naturally you wouldn't know about until a day or two that were on you, and you all of a sudden you had too much capacity or not enough manpower, so you're able to forecast that. And then it also gave us the ability to really start looking at costing from a labor standpoint. Because of the ability of people to scanning out on the work order, we were able to now start tracking times on task within different mold resets and different processes in the plant to really get a better labor cost. So it wasn't just a scheduling component that it added value, it brought value throughout the whole business, being able to manage that data.
Basically being able to measure so that you could then determine where you might find ability to opportunities for improvement.
Absolutely.
Did you, Greg, did you in this, your use of your scheduling system, did you were you ever able to collect or determine cost savings from doing that in terms of the reallocation of labor resources?
Yeah, so it was an evolution over time. And once you had the data in Identicia, then you started to really realize what you could do with it. So like I mentioned, from costing the time, from scanning and scans in, scans out on the work order, they would have to scan it to prompt themselves to view the shop ticket that Identicia provides. We would start getting those clocks, and we're able to really start hard costing our time, feeding that information back to our estimating team saying, hey, I know you bid this project with this many labor hours, but the reality is we went over by 10%, and we've been tracking this, and we're not going to do any better. So the next time, make sure we're costing it appropriately.
Yeah. How about on the scheduling side? Were you able to relieve time from your scheduling person?
Yeah, so the scheduling person was spending about 30 hours a week just scheduling. It was a project coordinator scheduler. So that time was diminished down to almost zero because the processes started with the drafting team and engineering team who actually input the data into the scheduler. So it more became of a maintenance, more than a maintenance check once a week. The system ran itself.
Nice, nice, good. Good. And I like hearing that. And that's not self-congratulatory because that was not our scheduling system that you use, but it's encouraging to see what the possibilities are. Good. Well, after Greg informed us about what he was doing with the scheduling system, we decided that looked like something that we might want to be able to offer ourselves. So we, in fact, started working with the same developers that Greg worked with to produce one. And when we started it, we also started working with some precast partners of ours that are beta testing the system. And when we started doing it, we started more or less, at the plant where the activity starts in the plant. By the way, we're doing this for building structures, adapting what Greg had done for his cast stone business to apply effectively for the underground structures market. And we will be actually also evolving that into hollow core and pre-stress as well. But as we started doing this with our partner, it very quickly became apparent, like Greg was just saying, that you don't want to limit it to starting in the plant. You want to be able to have the scheduling system flow from engineering at the very beginning through project management and then through the plant. So we were able to do that. And of course, the benefits are that it breaks down those silos by integrating the scheduling across the entire workflow process. This is something that we've learned is a bit of a problem for plant manufacturer operators in the plant, that the silos, especially having to work closely with project management, create a lot of waste. And as I mentioned before, we're doing this for underground structures, and we are scheduling the next iteration of this will be for hollow core and pre-stress. Now, the scheduling, the planner is pretty sophisticated with the algorithm. What it does is it accounts for all of the constraints in your plant, starting with the size of your plant floor and the working space required for molds. It accounts for the number of molds or forms you have, and also applies the logic of the number of molds required for each product when it determines the scheduling path, all of which is the schedule is centered around the ship dates for each product. It then, because it's focusing on optimizing for the shipping date, it accounts for each one of the steps in the process from engineering to shipping and the typical amount of target number of days that should be expected for the work in each one of those phases. And finally, it does allow for some prioritization independent of the scheduling, because the real world produces situations where you have two jobs that might have the same ship date, and you have to make a decision that as to which one should be prioritized. And I suspect, Greg, that this is the kind of thinking that or the kind of work that you evolved your scheduler into, that instead of having to do the menial work of plotting all of this stuff out, that it allowed him or her to focus on making those higher order decisions, like which jobs should be prioritized and that sort of thing. Is that a fair statement?
That very fair statement.
Yeah.
To speak to this, what you get out of this with the automation is, one, a reallocation of time, but you start to take, as you spoke to, you start taking the waste out of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell a quick story here about that. I'll pause for a second. You want me to do that right here, Jeff?
Sure. Yeah.
About the missed capacity?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
That'd be great, yeah.
So I'll tell you a quick story about how much waste it takes out. We were in our initial phases using the software. After about a month, we were still using our scheduler, running side by side with the automated program to measure its accuracy. And what we found after a month was the human component was missing about 5 yards of concrete a week. So they were not thinking about things in such a logical manner as the algorithm was. So, you walk the floor and you see a missing mold and you say, geez, I overlooked it, right? But didn't get poured. So that adds up day after day. So that's the $2.5 million a year when you're talking architectural pricing.
Wow.
So it was a big deal. So it was
sure
a quick
is.
way to, increase revenues without having to hammer on the sales team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, minimizing waste is always the first place you want to start, right? And one of the things that we've seen in working with it for the underground structures market and developing for that is that, to your point about the difference between human judgment and what the algorithm does, there have been plenty of times where we've said, well, why is it telling us to do this? Because I wouldn't think, based on what we assumed before, that it would be necessary. And sure enough, it was that the rigor of the algorithm, the unyielding rigor of the algorithm versus what we might have forgotten or, interpreted the wrong way and so forth. So I've seen that firsthand.
Yeah, that used to happen many times. We'd have our production manager come into the office, say, it's saying we need to produce this mold, but we can't produce that piece into that mold. And I said, well, go look back at it. And sure enough, you could produce it in that mold.
Yeah. Good. Thanks for that. That's good stuff. So what we've, thanks to the work that Greg started and what we've been able to build on, we now have a flow that starts with engineering, works through project management, form, prep, cage assembly, production, and then leads to shipping, which is available to everyone in those various departments. And in fact, we have one setup where the project management team actually releases products manually in the scheduler into the plant for form prep, so that they have that ability to control, but also through an integrated process. And then the flip side of it is that they can then have access to be able to see the daily dashboard to understand exactly what is happening in each various phase of development. And as I mentioned before, one of the nice things about the system is that each morning a new schedule is produced and it's emailed out in this form to every member of the production team in their appropriate categories. So the other thing that I'll mention while we're on the topic is that because we're integrated with the scheduling system, that all of the jobs and the projects can be managed through Identicia and automatically flow through to the scheduling system. So you can create a job in Identicia. You can import the products for that job or project data from your BIM system, ERP system, or Excel into Identicia. So now the system knows which products to produce for each job. And then the products are automatically entered into the precast planner for scheduling. So instead of having to enter it in both places, you enter it once in Identicia and it flows through everything. So that's an overview of how data tracking works, the value of it, and how it works with automated scheduling, and a little bit about how the scheduling works. So now what we'll do is we'll take you through a sort of day in the plant with data tracking, which is, as I mentioned before, the foundation. We'll do a pre-pour inspection and show you how that works in the system. So it starts by scanning an RFID tag or a barcode. Both work equally well. And what happens is when the scanner scans the barcode or RFID tag, the serial number that's written into them is populated in the app, as you see under serial number on the tablet. That becomes the serial number for the product, which you then choose by searching through the jobs that you have in this uploaded in the system, as I described before, or on the other tab, a list of your stock item types that you are selling. In this case, we'll look into a job called the Bowman Highway job. And in that, we will see the panels that are the pieces that have been uploaded or transferred into Identicia for that particular job, and we'll work on a bridge panel. So we'll click on that, and then that'll open up what we call the default process, which is the process assigned to any particular item type. So if you have different inspection processes or pre-pour processes for different products, that will vary depending on the product that you choose in the system. And as you can see, you can input numeric data, obviously pass fail. There's text data you can input. You can collect GPS location and any number of different things. We'll scroll down and we'll see here that if you want, you can take a picture of it within your process. And at the very bottom, you can see if you want to have a signature collected, you can do that, and people can sign with their fingers, just like when UPS delivers. Now, once you're through with that pre-pour process, you'll press finish and it'll take you back to the list of processes that you have available to you within the system. And you can see on the right of pre-pour inspection, that is now checked. So anytime you go back and you scan that piece again, this list will come up and it will show you the processes that have already been performed on it. Now what we'll do is we'll go back and say, and look in what we call the management portal, which is your web hosted account. And we'll see what's happened there as a result of the work that we just did. So when you pull it up, you'll get your dashboard. And when you're in that dashboard, on the left-hand menu, you'll see a tab called Items, which you click on, and you'll see that on the very top there, in the box is bridge panels made by Jeff Pollock. So if we click on that serial number, it will take us to the page that has been created to host all of the information about this particular product. So you have the, excuse me, you have the GPS location. If you've taken pictures, they're collected, signatures and so forth, all in association with this one product record. If you scale down, you'll see that the first process that was done was the pre-pour inspection, and you'll see on the left all of the information that was required, and then under value you'll see the inputs that were made. It also tells you when this was done in the modified column, and if we were looking at the full screen here, we'd see who did it. So you have complete transparency about who's done what to each product. Now we'll click on dashboard, go back to that, and we'll decide we'd like to get a little bit more insight as to the NCR problem that we've had. And we can see that we have a few different categories, and lifting hardware seems to be the most predominant issue. So we'll click on that graphic, and you see on the bottom left, I just highlighted the tile called Items. And when we click down on it, you'll see that that changes to show you the items that were affected by that lifting hardware issue. You can also tell by looking at them that they've since been fixed and accepted. And if you clicked on the item details link, you'd get taken back to the product page for that particular product, much like the one we just looked at. So now we'll go back to the dashboard and we'll click on the lower left under Map, just to show you one of the features that is the most compelling for our customers is the ability to track their products in a map of their yard. So this again is a partial view, but you can see in the table we have all the products in the system, and then in the right hand panel in our mock-up we did at our office, we have the products that are located in the yard. On the right, there's a filtering mechanism that allows you to go in and search by product in any way you want, by job, by product type, by date of production, or a combination of all of those. And that can narrow you down to finding one product, which you see on the table. All of the other items are shadowed, and we have the one product you were looking for, and that yellow dot is where that product's located. So now you can use that information to go out in the yard and quickly find the product. Now, that's really concludes the overview of both the data tracking and the automated scheduling, and show you a little bit about how it works. We are grateful for your attendance to this, and we'll be happy to to take your questions. If you have questions, you can enter them in the questions panel on your screen, and they will be texted over to us, and we'll read them and be glad to answer them.